Hey everyone, here's a lesson for Barre. I said I'd do on clean bar chord technique. Make sure those strings ring out cleanly. You don't cramp up too much in the left hand or the right hand, and it should help you to get some more smooth transitions going on and play some of the tracks we all love to play with bar chords, since there's a lot of them. So I want to start off with the technique. Thumb placement for me is one of the big ones. When I see people having trouble with bar chords, it's normally because the thumb placement is not ideal, which causes the rest of the fingers to not line up properly and causes muting. Now, I'll go into that a bit more later. I'm also going to talk about how to not press down too hard on the fretboard. You see that quite often. In the beginning, it's quite an unnatural position to have your hand in, and what it does is it causes people to really clamp down on the strings, which is not necessary. Just because the strings don't ring out cleanly doesn't mean you're not pressing down hard enough. It just means you might not be pressing down in the right way. So, those are the two big issues. After that, I'll show some examples so you can practice it at home. Some of them might be a bit tough here and there, but we all got something to aspire to, and they're fun to play. So, let's carry on. So what I do is I place the thumb on the back of the neck, just over halfway. So say we're going to bar the fifth chord here. The fifth fret here. And officially, as far as I know, in classical playing, you'd have the guitar position like this. You place your thumb right on the back, smack in the middle, and then bar. This would cause your thumb and your index finger to be together, and the thumb will be pointing straight towards your face or at a 90-degree angle from the neck, so the same position as the frets are. Since I play like this most of the time, not always, but most of the time, the thumb will edge slightly towards the headstock, but you don't want it pointing straight at the headstock because that'll cause your hand palm to move in closer to the neck. We don't want that because that'll cause these fingers to lay flatter, and if they lay flatter, they're going to mute each other. You see, there's different parts to your finger. Some of them are harder and some of them are softer. So if you have the same amount of pressure equal over the whole finger, you might not be fretting it as efficiently with every part of the finger. So it's always a bit of mix and match as to how much pressure you put where. Sometimes you have to put more on the treble side, sometimes more on the bass side, but it's not a science, it's something you'll figure out as you go, it's something you'll get a feel for. Just make sure the thumb is placed nicely, that your hand palm is not touching the back of the neck, or the front of the neck for that matter, and that you have lots of movement in the rest of your fingers, because you're going to need that later when we start building them up. Next, let's build up a chord. We'll play an A major, 5th fret, A major bar chord. Okay. Nice and clean. Now the position I have here, thumb again is just over halfway at the back of the neck, the same position as the index finger. Thumb is not pointing out above the back of the neck, which leaves my hand palm free from the neck. I'm not gripping the neck, I'm completely free from the neck. My index finger is wrapped over with just enough pressure equal over the strings to actually fret them all, and then I add the rest of the fingers. Now, the rest of the fingers might not be coming in at exactly 90 degrees onto the fretboard, but you want them to come in quite straight. You want them to come in at a vertical angle. What you don't want is this, because if you do this, you're going to mute the strings. Your fingers being flat over the other strings will mute them. So you want to come in quite direct. And this will take some practice, don't worry about it. And be sure to play the strings individually as well, to make sure you not just have the note coming out, but you have the note coming out clearly. You want to have a good sound coming out of all of them. Pressure on the strings. A lot of people tend to put more pressure on the strings when they're not ringing out clearly, when maybe the reason they're not ringing out clearly has nothing to do with the amount of pressure on the strings. You see this a lot with bar chords, that strings being muted are being solved by pressing and squeezing harder, but you're still muting the strings. So to do that, that's why we start with the basics. Make sure you have clear notes. And then once you have clear notes, you can start getting a feel for how much pressure you actually have to put down. There's hardly any pressure I'm putting down now, but they're still ringing out clearly. You were talking about white fingers. You will have white fingers in the beginning. There's a difference between white fingers and white fingers. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, especially when bending, you'll have a little bit more pressure on your fingers, and they will, you know, turn white. But you don't want to be clenching your teeth and having, you know, lower arm muscles that are bigger on one side than on the other simply because of guitar playing. We have other activities for that. Okay, so that's thumb placement and building a bar chord. It's going to be tricky. I'll give you some exercises at the end to help it out a bit. But one of the simplest ways is just to sit down and make them all over the neck, wherever you want, however long it takes you. Don't worry about speed. Don't worry about placing them as quickly as possible. Just make sure you have them placed as accurately as possible. That's what's most important. When you start switching between positions as well, try to keep your fingers in the position that you want them. So when you get there, you don't have to go navigate again over the strings. Think about your breathing as well. A lot of people, I notice some people that are very close to me, when they play, they have a very strange way of breathing, and it reflects their rhythm, and not so much counting or not so much staying in rhythm with the music, but more as to when they strike the strings, because it's the concentration. And try to break through that. It doesn't mean you're not concentrating anymore. You still have to concentrate, and everyone is still busy in their mind with what they're doing, especially when it's something that we find more difficult. But try to have other physiological effects of that negated. I find it very difficult because when I play more difficult passages, I hold my breath as well. And then I'll find that the longer the passages get, the more likely I am to pass out by the end of the track. And I'm by no means a technical player, so you can imagine I keep my breath held pretty much permanently, which is something that I have to work on as well. So again, this is something for all levels. Don't worry about it. It's just something we have to be aware of to work with. Left hand, right hand muting. We're going to start off with left hand muting. How is muting going to help us? Muting is going to help when we start switching chords over the fretboard. When you start playing tracks, you're going to want to shut up every now and again, and you're going to want to play things every now and again. And how do we do that? By starting and stopping, and we use muting for that. Now, left hand muting can be quite tricky, but it's again something that we're going to develop. So let's say we got the chord. Left hand muting is letting up the fingers on your left hand just enough to not be fretting the note anymore. Causes the strings to stop ringing out and mutes the chord. Now, when do we use this? Primarily we use it when your right hand is very busy doing something else. So say you're busy strumming away with the right hand and you can't actually stop and position the right hand in a good place to mute, then you'll use left hand muting. It's not really something you do consciously. It'll eventually become a developed technique using left and right hand muting, but again, let's be aware of the different types we have, and then we can work on them. And you can work on this independently by just letting up on the strings. What does it sound like? Now you get that raking sound as well, which a lot of people use. Excellent for setting down rhythms together with the back line. But also for having that little bit of silence in between chords that you need. Instead of... Yep. Okay, next, right hand muting. Right hand muting makes sense, is done with the right hand or the hand you're strumming with if you're a left-hander. Right hand muting involves using this part of the hand, the fleshy part of the hand palm we should call it. What you do is you rest it on the strings to stop the strings from ringing out. So what you do here is by letting up and the strings stop vibrating, we do the same with the right hand over here. Sounds like this. Okay, no need to press down, there's no need to push, there's no need to hit, to slap, just rest your hand palm on the strings. There you go. Now again, you could use somewhat of a raking technique here as well, and eventually you'll have the hand palm muting as well, which is famous for lots of different types of music. But for now we'll just stick to muting the chord with the hand palm. Now, as I said earlier, you'll start using a combination of the two, which will start to sound something like this. I can't even exactly tell you where I use which technique. It becomes familiar to you and you'll come up with your own methods of doing it. There are some more advisable ways of doing it, but we'll get to that when we need to. At the moment, just start to feel familiar, start to feel comfortable with the techniques, and you'll start to find your own way of doing it, just like I did. I picked some examples which will show the different methods that we spoke of. Not going into muting too much, because you kind of need to mute to make it sound like the song, so you'll have to figure out kind of where you do what. Some of them are a little more tricky than others. Don't worry about it if it's still a bit too difficult. I just wanted to pick some songs that are fun and something to aspire to. And if you just want to take one of the passages out of the more difficult parts and practice that, that's fine. And let me know if you need any help with any of the others. Again, just pick some famous songs. I think we'll do some She Is Suffering, Manic Street Preachers. It's a good one because it uses different techniques and some nice big bar chords. And I thought Brown Sugar would be a good one as well. We'll start off with She Is Suffering, Manic Street Preachers. Starts off with an E minor played on the A string. So if you go up to the 7th fret on the A string, finish off with the E minor shape, and we play it up until there. So we include the B string. We're not actually using the E string for this anymore, so that last E can be left out. Comes a tricky part. So we've got everything we need here. The bar chord is made, the thumb is in the right position, we've got just enough pressure. I'm actually going to pick this one individually. So you might want to get comfortable with that. Tricky bit here is we're going to move the index finger down 1 fret. So everything else stays the same, but you'll move your index finger down 1 fret. And when I do it, I move my thumb as well. I like to have my thumb behind the index finger because it kind of keeps a balance of where I have the most pressure. Since the thumb is pushing from the back as well, it's not really pushing, but since the thumb is putting pressure on from the back of the neck, I normally have it as balance point always near the index finger, just so I know where I am. I'd advise you to try both ways. Try moving just the index finger, or try moving the index finger and the thumb, and just focus on this. Yeah, so that's worth a try. After that, it moves down again to play an A minor. In the end, it sounds like this. notice with the A and the A minor, it's not actually a bar chord, but try to use the correct technique with the thumb. So in the end, it becomes less of a transition from open chords to bar chords. Now comes the fun bit in this song, just the open bar chords. This is probably the best one to start with once you start getting comfortable with bar chords. The good part about this is they move around, but the shape stays pretty much the same. So it's a really good way to practice this. Now, what does it sound like? Let's start with the intro again. Good fun chords. Start with a G, 3rd fret bar chord, go up to a B, down to an E minor, and then back to G, B, A. And what you notice there is that we're starting to use the muting techniques as well. So you have nice big open chords here. What you'll find in between changing these chords is that you use a combination of left and right hand muting. So you start with a G, mute it with the left hand, mute the strings with the right hand while you move your left hand up. Mute the chord with the left hand, mute the strings with the right hand when you move down. Then when you get to the A, now you could suffice with muting with the right hand here because you don't want any of the raking sound in between. So you could do, or you could use a combination of the two again. Now I've exaggerated the hand movement on the left hand there, if you can see it through the microphone. And what I'm doing is I'm letting up with the left hand just before I mute with the right hand. Different techniques, different styles, see what you find comfortable. Again, you don't have to play along with the track immediately, especially this bit in the beginning, the arpeggios, might be quite tricky, but they're definitely good exercises to get comfortable with bar chords and the techniques involved. On to the tricky one, brown sugar. Now, why did I choose brown sugar? Mostly because it's fun to play and I thought it would go down well, but also because it's not bar chords which cover the entire neck. So we don't start on E and end on E, well in this case G and G, but we don't start on the lower string and end on the highest string. It's normally played in groups of 3 strings and there's quite a lot of movement. Again, this is quite a tricky one to start playing. What I would advise is to take a small piece of, take 2 chords and 1 movement and then practice those individually and then see if you can eventually patch the whole lot together and play brown sugar. Now, what do we start with? G string, 9th fret. B string, 8th fret, E string, 8th fret. Then we go down to 7th fret, G string, 8th fret, B string, 7th fret, E string. There you go. Try that one first. You'll know if you got it right. Because it's a riff everyone knows. Now you're going to have to be a little bit more accurate with your right hand here because you only want these top 3 strings to ring out. and you're going to have to be using the muting. And in this case, I used mostly right-hand muting because I'm quite busy with my left hand making sure I've got the right shapes, and I think you will be as well. So I'd focus on right-hand muting here. And proper finger placement. So you want the thumb well behind on the fretboard, and you want to have the fingers give lots of space. Now you'll probably find that you can't have your index finger straight up, and it's very uncomfortable, and it'll have your elbow out here somewhere. Don't worry about curling the index finger a bit. As long as the strings ring out cleanly, no one really cares how you do it. So say you need to bring your index finger in a little like this, position your hand a little more towards the body of the guitar so you have a diagonal running away from your body, that's fine. You'll find different, when you're pushed into different corners when you're only using a few strings, your fingers will start to take different angles depending on where you're going after this. So for instance, when you play these, the guinea pigs just flew out half of their cage. So when you start playing these kind of chords, you'll notice how your fingers change the angle. It also means how your hand changes, but some principles stay the same. Your thumb will be placed on the back of the neck, and you won't be gripping the neck like this. Because if you start gripping the neck like this, you're going to be left with the flat fingers again, which are going to mute strings. And unless you're very sure about what you're doing, and that's actually your intention, I'd stay away from that for the moment. So, back to Brown Sugar. We've got the first two chords. Now we have to finish this, because otherwise my OCD kicks in. So what do we play there? We bar the D, G, and B strings on the 5th fret. And then we add the 7th fret on the D string and the 6th fret on the B string. Very nice chord to play with, but we're only using these 3 strings. So, you can practice that. Again, I'm using mostly right-hand muting here. You'd probably be using a combination of left and right hand when you start to get the feel for it, because they have that real groove and the beat in there as well, which is typically Stones, and they do it so well. This has something to do as well with their huge reggae influence. When you start playing this, you don't need to play it at speed, but make sure you play it in rhythm. So make sure that you're actually playing them at the right time. In the beginning, you're going to be fighting it a bit, you know, you're finding your finger placement. That's okay. Just make sure you start at a comfortable speed and don't start, you know, getting despondent or upset when it doesn't work. It's something we've all been there, really, that it get very frustrating, and it's not worth it. Just go back to basics. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes, and we build up from there. Now, let's just finish it for fun. So what are we doing there? I'm going to run through this quickly because I think we've got enough to practice with already. If you need more detail into the rest of the riff, contact me when you get that far, and we'll make sure we get the rest done if you want to continue this. So we go up to the 8th fret, and we bar the D, the G, and the B again. We add the 10th fret on the G string to that. Go back to the 5th fret again, and then we only bar the 6th fret on the B string. Go down to the 1st fret, D, G, B. Well, not D, G, B, but the D, G, B strings. And we bar the same shape again that we did earlier. Let go. Do the same on the 3rd fret. And go back up to the 5th. So you see the same shapes recurring, and that's very common in songs that use bar chords, is that they start using certain shapes and they play them on different places of the neck. Take out the bits that are important to you. Make sure you practice them. Make sure you practice them in a relaxed state of mind, in a relaxed atmosphere. Don't get stressed out about it. If you need any help, let me know. Me or any of the other guys on the forum will be glad to help you out, no doubt about it. I enjoy doing these little things as well. It keeps my Saturday interesting, so let me know if you need anything else. Again, I'm no teacher. There are guys out there who could probably disprove every single point that I've mentioned in this lesson, but these are things that work for me, and they might work for you. Just for the people interested in what I'm using, this is a Fender Stratocaster Eric Johnson signature, going through a Proco Rat distortion pedal, and this is my little Pride Fender champ from the late 60s, early 70s. I think it's early 70s anyway. Great little amp. And everything's being recorded by the mic in SE1000. So, let me know what you think about it, and have fun playing. Let me know how you get along.